How you doing? So I am here to tell you a little bit about who I am and what I do in the world. My name is Brigitte, and I'm the founder of Embrace Change. And the name is very meaningful for a lot of reasons, and I'll get to that in a little bit. So I want to tell you why I am an entrepreneur. The reason I came to this particular format of entrepreneurship and the work that I do in the world has to do with where I started my journey. I spent years working as a nonprofit manager, leader. I worked in academia, and I was always the odd man out in the sense that I was always disrupting the norm. I was called a loose cannon and too intense. And the reality is, the 5 reasons I used to get in trouble working in more traditional organizations are the 5 reasons I've succeeded at working for myself. And it's because when we are taking our own path in life and doing our work in the world on our own terms, we are required to show up with motivation and purpose and intention and create our own structure and our own, quote, authority. And for most of us, we never had that. And this is just part of society. This is part of how we were raised. And so much of what trips people up in life and in their business are bullshit stories. And I say that with love. They're stories that we have adopted from our families, from our friends, from our cultural upbringing. And that stuff runs deep. So the work that I do in the world is really starting with ourselves and our narratives and understanding who we really are, what our value is in the world, that our value is always grounded in how we serve others, and understanding that we have infinite potential and the power to rewrite our story at any time. This really takes me to the next part of my story that I'd like to share, which is some of the inner work that I had to do to disrupt some of my own BS, right? Some of the fear stories that I had going on in my life. So when I was 6 months pregnant with my daughter Tallulah, whose picture is up there because she's always with me, I got a phone call and found out that my mom had had a massive stroke, which left her severely disabled and she couldn't walk, couldn't do anything for herself. At this very time, my husband's father was dying of cancer. And to say that it was chaotic is an understatement. So I had a newborn, I had a severely disabled parent, I had a grieving husband that just lost his father. I was having all sorts of issues as a new parent, as a new mom. And shortly thereafter, I got laid off from my job. And so when you look at that big picture, it hardly seems like the time to launch my purpose-driven business and to do the thing in the world that I've always wanted to do and to take this big risk. And in working with my own coach and mentor, who's someone that I deeply love and respect, I came to this realization through his coaching that I was really an incredibly powerful, resilient, capable woman. And that I had these stories in my mind of what I could do and couldn't do. And when I was required to step up as a new mom, as a caregiver, as a support for my family at this chaotic time, I really had this epiphany that we underestimate ourselves so much. And it's when we're put in the fire and life throws us some seriously harsh, difficult, painful experiences that we rise, that we come alive, that we tap into that inner strength. And we can go 2 ways with a situation like the one that I lived through. And I'm sure many of you have had situations far worse than my own. We can become a victim of the situation. And I was teetering on that precipice. I was really thinking, like, is this my life? Am I going to be responsible for everyone and everything, and I'm never gonna get to do what I want? And the story could run on. And what I learned to do through my coaching was to just disrupt the story and really look at it and say, is this really true? And in looking at that story, I came to the realization that I had more choices than I thought. But they required me to take risks that were, quite frankly, terrifying. And in my case, the investment that I made in myself and in my business and in my life was I decided to put my mom in a care home, which I had to disrupt a whole slew of narratives. And it was total BS once again. In truth, I was struggling to care for my mom at home, spending tons of money on care and solutions that were not designed for her condition. Her condition exceeded what you should be doing to care for a person at home. And so I realized that the true story was that my mom was actually better off in the care home that I ultimately found for her. And it's incredibly expensive and fancy. It's $5,000 a month. I'm not gonna candy coat it. And so investing $5,000 a month in my mom's care opened up this window of, now I have to actually work in my business, because now I've lost the BS story and I had to step up and do what I needed to do, which I did. And it resulted to me growing to 6 figures within the second year of my business, which sounds incredibly exciting and glamorous. And there's more to it than that, right? It wasn't like I just waved a magic wand. But the main lesson in this story is I wouldn't have gotten anywhere close to where I am in my business today if I hadn't disrupted the narrative that I was stuck, that I had no options, that I was limited and I couldn't grow beyond the situation that I was in because I had to do these things. When we create a new story, the empowered story of what we really want, what we really desire for ourselves, and we figure out, how do I go all in on that? And we are willing to take the risks and invest in ourselves to bring us to that place, that's when the magic really starts to happen. So I want to take you through a really quick exercise before we wrap up. And you've heard me talk now about stories and BS narratives or beliefs that limit us, and how we can shift those stories to what we really want. I want you to think about one story or one belief that you have right now about your own success as an entrepreneur that's tripping you up, it's keeping you stuck, or it's holding you back. And think about if you could erase that story and rewrite it in a way that was more truthful, more empowered, and had more possibility in it. What would that new version of your story look like? So I would love for you to comment or drop me a message, and please share that one BS story that you're working on disrupting, because I really do want to hear it, and I really want to wish you so much abundance and success. And I want you to leave this video today feeling fired up about owning what you really want in the world and writing the story that matches that.